Only if you've been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain.
Fresh revelations and one of the century's most controversial politicians, The Secret Life of Richard Nixon. Reputations, Monday at 9 on BBC Two.
Space, 2,000 miles of it. We Australians are haunted by this long frontier. I don't know how to shear or how to handle stock. I am a city boy. You've got to be a loner to love this red desert, or an opal miner. Yeah, that's opal.
Home Truths from Down Under, Australia beyond the fatal shore, continues Sunday at the earlier time of 8 o'clock on BBC Two.
A summary of the BBC News now on BBC Two with Hugh Edwards.
Good afternoon. A blockade by French fishermen is causing chaos for thousands of holidaymakers trying to cross the Channel. Some ferries have been forced to return to Britain because demonstrators in France prevented them from docking. The action is in protest at the rising price of fuel in France. Our correspondent Francesca Castellitz is at the Portsmouth ferry terminal. Francesca, what's the latest picture there?
Well, it has quietened down since this morning simply because a lot of people have given up and gone home. Those that are left behind are increasingly frustrated and fed up. You can actually sail to 4 French ports from here, 2 of which are closed, that's Cherbourg and St Malo. Now, the people who wanted to go there have either been diverted to Le Havre, which means a long drive the other side of the Channel. Some of us say have just turned around and think it's just not worth it. Others, like the group behind me, are determined to stick it out and get on the ferry of their choice. But still no guarantees that they'll be able to make it even by tonight. They're angry. They say they want compensation from the ferry companies.
Francesca, many thanks for that. More than 20 passengers have been hurt in an accident on the Paris metro. Dozens of emergency workers were called to a station in the north of the city after a train was derailed as it left the platform. None of the injuries is said to be serious. 3 young neo-Nazis have been jailed for murder in Germany, the end of a case which prompted a national outcry against mounting racist violence. The court sentenced a 24-year-old to life and his 2 16-year-old accomplices to 9 years each for kicking a Mozambican immigrant to death in the city of Dessau. Steelworkers' unions have welcomed a decision by the firm Chorus to invest £35 million in its Llanwern plant in South Wales. The money will be used to overhaul a blast furnace and should safeguard around 3,000 jobs at the works near Newport. Scotland's examinations fiasco has worsened. It's now emerged that the errors that dogged the marking of Highers exams has also hit standard grade tests. More than 4,000 students who took the exams, the equivalent of GCSEs in England and Wales, will have their results checked again.
The helpline at the Scottish Qualifications Authority taking calls today about the standard grade results. Just over 4,000 pupils should have been told by now their results could be wrong. But more chaos today. Faxes from the SQA got muddled up, schools got the wrong information. One school near Glasgow got details of pupils in Perthshire.
I fully appreciate that there are a great many students have been affected by it. I'm sorry about that. But what we are doing is that we are focusing all our efforts on making sure that the problem's A, fixed, and B, prevented from ever happening again.
But this is now being described as the biggest political issue in Scotland since devolution. There have been calls from the opposition parties for the resignation of the Labour Education Minister, Sam Galbraith. There's a promise that most standard grade results will be corrected by the end of the week. And the SQA point out only 1% of the results were wrong. But that's not restoring confidence in the exam system.
Talks aimed at securing the release of 11 British soldiers who are being held in Sierra Leone have been overshadowed by a row over what the men were doing there in the first place. The head of the UN peacekeeping mission in the West African country has claimed that the men didn't say where they were going and were deep in militia territory when they were kidnapped. But the British Army says such allegations can only be settled once the men are freed.
We simply don't know the full details of what went on that day. In previous instances, we have liaised closely with the UN, and this was an authorised mission by the UK commander. and we believe that there had been liaison.
The latest official figures on house prices in England and Wales show that the average cost of a home has broken the £100,000 barrier for the first time. But the Land Registry says that the rate at which prices are going up has in fact slowed down slightly. Government officials have clashed with native Indians off Canada's east coast in a row over fishing rights. 2 Indian boats, the smaller boats in these pictures, tried to deter some 20 federal vessels. The Canadian government claims it has the right to regulate the annual harvest of lobsters in these waters. The Indians claim it is their historic right. Now, in the past few minutes, lawyers at the High Court acting for David and Victoria Beckham say the pair have settled their row with the biographer Andrew Morton about his forthcoming book, Posh and Becks. They say full agreement has been reached on the contents with both the author and his publishers. More of that, of course, on News 24 through the afternoon and with me at 6 o'clock on BBC One. See you then.
And the latest in the southeast, good afternoon to you. A man who was wielding an axe terrorising shoppers in a London supermarket is now seriously ill in hospital. He was shot by police at Sainsbury's in New Cross last night.
Sainsbury's store in New Cross reopened for business this morning after being shut following last night's shooting. 50 customers had watched terrified as a 26-year-old man wielding an 18-inch hatchet confronted police from an armed response unit just before 8 o'clock. He was then shot twice.
What we're living in now, it's ridiculous. No, it's really out of hand.
One of the guys who lives in our house was in Sainsbury's when he heard some gunshots going off and he saw the police chasing someone in a black jacket. That's all I know.
The suspect from southern Europe was taken from here to an undisclosed hospital. The Police Complaints Authority are investigating. Sainsbury's have pointed out the man was not an employee and they've surrendered their CCTV footage to the investigation.
Sarah Lockett reporting there. A second man has died from injuries suffered in an attack at the Notting Hill Carnival. 28-year-old Abdul Bati from Hounslow was badly beaten on Monday evening. Police have begun a murder inquiry.
Police say Abdul Bati was attacked by a group of men at about 7 o'clock on Monday evening at the junction of Blenheim Crescent and Kensington Park Road. The 28-year-old from Hounslow staggered up to Westbourne Park Road before being taken to hospital, where he died yesterday. Police are also hunting the murderer of Greg Watson from Northolt, who was stabbed in Kensal Road at about 10 o'clock on Monday night. The attack on the 21-year-old was apparently unprovoked.
This second murder ensures that the Millennium Carnival will go into the history books for all the wrong reasons. The organisers admit that the deaths will overshadow what was otherwise a successful event. They've promised that any lessons that can be learnt will be learnt.
Events this year have made it more necessary than ever to look again at the organisation of the carnival route, for instance, and restructuring it.
In all, crime at the carnival was down. Police say 276 crimes were reported, compared with 308 last year. Police are appealing for witnesses to both murders. They're particularly keen to hear from anyone with photographs or video footage of the Blenheim Crescent area at the time of the attack. Paul Curran, Newsroom South East in Notting Hill.
House prices in London have again increased more dramatically than anywhere else in the country. New figures from the Land Registry show prices have risen more than 23% in the past year. It's likely the average house in Greater London will soon cost £200,000. There'll be more from Gillian and me at 6:30. In a moment, Sarah Wilmshurst with the weather. For now, have a good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. There's plenty of dry and fine weather around at the moment, all courtesy of high pressure, but things are set to change in the next 36 hours. This area of low pressure is going to push across all of us in 36 hours, bringing some wet and indeed some windy weather too. And then Friday is going to stay very unsettled with showers or even longer spells of rain. We've had 1 or 2 showers this afternoon in some hilly areas, but generally it's dry, there's plenty of sunshine around, but we are looking out to the northwest at this bank of cloud that is heading our way. It's going to bring some rain into northwestern areas later on this evening. But for many of us, we'll see any showers dying out, the clouds burning away too, and it looks like it'll be a dry and fine end to the day. And it's going to stay dry and fine too in southeastern parts of the United Kingdom throughout the night. Perhaps a little bit of mist and fog here, but it's going to turn wet and windy across Scotland, Northern Ireland and eventually northwest England. So here it's not going to be a cold night, temperatures staying in double figures. But it's going to be quite chilly further southeast as we see temperatures drop to around 8 or 9. So a chilly but bright start to the day across many parts of England and Wales, but we already have that cloud stretching from around the northwest of Wales up through northwest England into Scotland and Northern Ireland. Now some of that could be heavy, some difficult driving conditions as it pushes southeastwards through the day, leaving behind sunny spells and some hefty showers for northwestern areas through the afternoon. Now that rain will never get to the southeast until after dark, and here it'll be quite warm, temps up to 22 or 23, but where it stays wet it'll feel quite cool, a top temperature here of 16 or 17. Bye-bye.
Two little old men came and said thank you. These were two Jews. We were checked for all sorts of details. We had a French tailor who had made our suits in the French style.
Whatever happens, nobody must know. You must tell your mother, your father, your...
Speaking for the first and possibly last time, BBC Two reveals the agents of the clandestine organisation that helped Britain win the war. Secret Agent starts Thursday, 7th of September on BBC Two.
Kitchen Capers with Ainsley, Ready Steady Cook on BBC Two at 4:30. After an hour winning awards with